Scott and Christina MacIntyre, thank you for being on the Spirit Farm podcast. It is so great to have you guys.
Thanks for having us.
We're excited to be here.
Thrilled that you're here. You guys are married. You're a partnership. You do work and life and parenting and ministry together. And you have this incredible and unique story and background. We're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into the life, the music, the pursuit, the disability, the operations, the struggle, all that stuff. But let's start with American Idol. Can we start with American Idol and just talk about your experience on the show? Because I watched it live. I was a big fan. My family called in support of you.
All right.
And I think we would just love to hear about that journey, like how you got there. What was it like? The whole deal. Can you give it to us?
Yeah, well, thank you for calling in and
Yeah.
voting. You know, I think they're doing text and internet voting now. That was back in the day, right?
Right.
It's like you had to call.
Right.
Thank you for doing it. Yeah.
Was it season 8?
Season 8 in 2009, and such a huge show at the time. I think 4 out of 5 people in the U.S. were watching, and people used to do idol parties and get together and watch the show.
They did. It was a big deal. It was
Before he was on, we'd get together with friends 1 or 2 nights a week and watch, like 20 people.
Yeah.
So like seasons 1 through 7, you guys were at the TV. You were all about it, cheering for others.
Probably just a season or 2 before Scott. So it was
Okay.
kind of funny. Like the next year, it's like, oh, he's not here anymore. He's on the show.
But
it was before
yeah.
Netflix, before everyone had their own TV show. So it was a
That's
really
right.
communal, like a family thing.
That's right.
It was.
Yeah.
And it just really opened so many doors for me. And I something I think about a lot is just, you don't know what God is doing at the time. And at the time I was so excited just for the music business and all of that. But God was literally laying the groundwork for incredible ministry. And I just look at the things we're doing now, which we can talk about all that later too. It just really laid the foundation to be able to go and have a huge impact on the world, far beyond what I thought at the time.
Oh, absolutely, because there's millions of people now that know your name, that have heard your voice, that are rooting for you. I mean, just kind of you endeared yourself into millions of hearts in America. And so to start with, like, how did you get onto the show? Did you have to audition somewhere? And were you on the keyboard? Because I know that you played the piano and the keys. What was that audition like?
I had this thought that if I could play and sing for the judges or for America, that I'd be around for a long time on the show. And I didn't, and that is what ended up happening. At the first audition, you could not play an instrument at the time. So I was just hoping I could get through the a cappella auditions and, singing for the producers first several times, and then you meet the judges, and the competition kind of starts over again for TV. You sing for the judges, then you go to Hollywood Week. I didn't get to play the piano for most of that time, but then in Hollywood Week and then during a lot of the voting rounds, I played the piano, and that was very special to me. I remember them allowing instruments for the first time the season before, and that really made a big difference for me. It made me think, this is something that I should try now, because it's not just standing up there singing.
Right.
There's instruments. I could share a little bit more of myself,
Absolutely.
And I talked about there's a whole behind the scenes process. I think 110,000 people auditioned that year.
Gosh.
And I talk about a lot of it in a book that I got to write a number of years ago. It's called By Faith, Not by Sight. And it can be an encouragement to people watching, but scottmacintyre.com is where you can get it, and or Amazon or wherever. But I went into a lot of that and just the things that you don't normally see when you're watching the show.
Absolutely. And I hope that people do buy the book, because I've read some of it and it's awesome. And to get to know you more and see the background. So as you are you're thrust into that process, that environment, and you've got all kinds of people, 110,000 that auditioned, and then what? Like, how many make it through to like actually meeting the judges? Like,
probably like 100 per city or 150 per city. So they did 8 cities that year. It's most people don't make it through that first cut. And I didn't make it through. I originally auditioned in San Francisco and was turned down. And then
Oh,
the
wow.
same year I auditioned in Arizona, and they said yes, and they said yes, and they said yes.
Wow.
We kept going.
Good old
Kept it
Arizona.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so you get to so you make it work in Arizona, and then is it Hollywood Week that stuff becomes real and it's like the tighter people that we would be familiar with? That they narrow it down to like 20 or
There's probably 200 people left by Hollywood Week.
Okay.
My numbers are a little off. It's been a little while, Caleb.
Yeah. My
but,
numbers are way off,
you know,
so we're good.
But yeah, there's a couple hundred in Hollywood Week, and then you just, then once America starts voting, one person left every week, and the show's gotten shorter and changed over the years,
Yeah.
and but they used to drag it out. One person a week would go home, and then everyone would get to sing again the next week.
Yeah. And you made it to number 8, right?
I did.
You were the 8th person out of 110,000. That's incredible, man. Congratulations. What a cool, exhilarating experience.
Well, he will say that he thinks he sings better now than he did back then.
Oh, yeah, I bet
Kinda
you do.
funny.
Yeah.
By
yeah.
far, yeah.
I bet you-
People say, I'm going to go look you up on YouTube tonight. And I say, no, just go to scottmacintyre.com. That's the new stuff. YouTube, you're going to see me, doing stuff as a kid, and then this and that. It never goes away.
It never goes away.
Never goes.
It's just up there.
It's just, I can't do anything about it.
Give us a few highlight moments of your American Idol experience. Just some moments that really stand out to you where you were proud or you were surprised or you're an interaction with Simon Cowell that wasn't
Yeah.
humiliating or
No,
whatever.
Definitely, high five.
High
Caleb. Yeah.
five.
Yes. There
Yes,
you go.
yes.
There you go. One more time. It just, there you go. See, that's what should have happened. But Ryan Seacrest tried to high five me after the audition, and he said, "Well, congratulations, Scott. We will see you in Hollywood." And his hand just kind of hung up there midair for a while, and it still shows up in random magazines to this day, and
Did he not know that you were blind?
No, he knew. It's just
I think it's just like a reflex.
It's just
because
a
everyone
reflex.
else gets a high five coming
Right,
out with
right.
the golden ticket, and they're all excited. But
Right.
he realized it right away, but no one could really cut him a break. They just
Yeah.
made fun of him, like, "Oh, look what you did!
Did he convert it into a hug or anything
No.
redemptive?
No.
Well, he reached out, or he said, "Scott, I'm giving you a high five," and then they did it.
Okay.
We did the high five, and everything was okay. But it's just like the media had a heyday with it.
field day with
I'm
it.
the last person that would ever be offended by that.
Right.
And he's such a nice guy. So, don't want to beat him over the head too much. But the next time you feel bad for Steve Harvey, you just remember Ryan Seacrest tried to high five a blind guy.
So you thought that he was a nice guy, genuine.
He's so nice. He's
Okay.
a great guy.
What about the judges? How was your experience with the judges?
It was great. I mean, a lot of people ask what Simon was like,
Yeah.
and what, but he was very nice to me, especially off the show. I think some of he's just being honest. He doesn't have a lot of time, but he gives great hugs. He's like a big scary teddy bear.
Oh, that's
It's
funny. Interesting.
They were very supportive. He was usually, I think he was a fan
Yeah,
deep down.
I'm sure.
He said some very nice things to me on the show.
What's
actually.
the one
He
quote
did. I remember that.
Remember the one
He
quote?
said of all in a sea of forgettable people, you're the only one I think I'm really gonna remember.
Oh,
That's
wow.
great coming from Simon. I mean,
That's
very nice.
high praise coming from Simon Cowell. High praise.
Yeah.
Good
yeah.
for you, man.
My favorite moment
Yeah.
was so I was at school out in LA when he was on. We were not dating, we were just friends, but I got to go watch one week. And I remember meeting him after, and I could not believe how much makeup he was wearing.
Simon.
Scott.
Oh, Scott.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
so I got to say hi.
but you
after
already
the
knew each
show.
other. You
Yeah,
were
we already
friends.
knew each other.
Okay,
And
yeah.
so he'd invited me to come out. And I met him afterwards, I don't know, in the side room somewhere. And, this is coming from, last time I saw him, we were probably just hanging out at a friend's house or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And so you don't really realize, when you see someone on TV versus off TV, like, oh my goodness, he's got like eyeliner and like blush and all this stuff. Just seeing that up close.
Caked
That's
on
like
there.
the one
Just
thing I remember about that. The night was
Yeah.
like, whoa.
the man makeup, just thick and shine,
Yeah.
just doing it.
And
Not-
she said it out loud too. I mean, it was
I think
because
I did.
you couldn't miss it in person. You know, it looks great for TV, but you know, it's just without the lights, it looks kind of odd.
So you got to be there for one of the shows.
Yes, I did. He called me to come one week, and then I guess they canceled it, so I had to turn around and go home. But then, like the next week, right? I think
Yeah.
I could come out, so I got to wait in the line with everyone. And
Wow.
you know, back then they didn't want you to post any pictures or take videos, so you had to, I think, like check your phone or like turn it off or something. They took your
Yeah.
phones or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you just like waited for hours and hours and watched it. And they, you know, they were good at coaching the audience to respond when you're supposed to. So it was neat to see kind of that behind the scenes, how a large TV show works.
I
Mhm.
bet. Who ended
Yeah.
up winning that season?
Chris Allen
Chris
won.
Allen.
Yep. And yeah, a lot of great people from that season. Danny was from that season.
Danny
Danny Goki was very kind to do a guest spot on my album Lighthouse.
Yep.
We did a duet together on there.
Yep. I heard that.
We had a lot of great people that year. But what's been fun, Caleb, is going back year after year. Sometimes we don't get back, but we usually try to go back and encourage the new contestants and people that are on there. So we've actually met a lot of people from different seasons, and kind of becomes a little fraternity kind of a thing.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Other than Danny, are there one or two people that you really stay in touch with that have become close friends?
Yeah, I couldn't pick out a few. There are a lot.
Oh, there's a lot.
But a lot of them live in Nashville. A lot of
Mm.
them live in LA, but we tend to run into people more on the road sometimes than
Yeah.
we do when we're in one of those places.
Yeah.
Just the way it works. But
Now, did you
Yeah.
invite Christina that night because you were kind of digging her already, and you were hoping that something would spark there, or is it just kind of you invited?
probably, I don't know. You know, it's just
It was complicated back then.
I knew she was. Yeah.
I don't know. You never really know what's going on. You're just dating's hard.
Dating
Like
is
you're
hard.
trying to figure it out. You
Yeah.
know? Even like the period before you're dating is even harder.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're trying to like put feelers out there and see how people respond.
Yeah, it's but I knew she was out there.
Yeah.
And I obviously wanted her to come. So short answer probably somewhere between yes and maybe. So, but I was really glad that she came. I mean, it was very special. Yeah.
How is it that you guys first met?
Well, we actually met in Arizona at Scottsdale Bible Church back in 2003.
2003.
So I was 14 and he was 17.
Oh, wow.
But he thought I was 12. So then when I turned 15 and he was 18, it was like, oh, that's weird. But anyway, we were actually in a musical at church called The Music Man. I don't know if you're familiar with that kind of classic 76 trombones.
Have you ever seen it?
Okay.
I think that I've heard of it.
Yeah,
I don't know
okay.
that I've seen it.
So we
Yeah.
each had different roles there, and we just were friends and had a lot of fun back then. There was something going on. I don't know.
Were you
Yeah.
guys went to school in Arizona?
We were both homeschooled.
Oh, you were both homeschooled.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then homeschooled in Scottsdale, went to Scottsdale Bible.
So a lot of
met-
similar circles. Like we had a
Mhm.
lot of mutual friends and did,
Mhm.
co-ops or I guess plays, different things together. So
Yeah.
we saw each other pretty often.
Different activity. A lot of
Yeah.
swing dancing back then.
A lot
That
of
was great.
swing
Thing.
dancing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you still swing dance? Is that still a thing that
Not
people do?
very often. Yeah, I think it's still a thing people do. I don't know. We haven't done it in
Well,
a while.
last time we did swing dancing, I think I was holding our child. Well, he and I were trying to swing dance at like a park. So
just-
it's a little
yeah.
harder once you're a parent.
Once you're a
You wanted to
parent.
be right in the middle, so we couldn't do as many turns.
You have
things.
you have a 3-year-old named Christian,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And so he sees mom and dad dancing. He wants to be up in the middle
yeah,
of it.
exactly. You gotta bring him in. Be
Bring
fun.
him in. Yeah,
Mhm.
I got 3
Yeah.
kids. I know how that goes.
Yeah.
It's like fun to watch for a second, then they're either embarrassed or they're like
Let me
want in
try.
the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were friends for about 6 years and then started dating. Well, I guess you can tell.
After American Idol,
Yeah.
we started dating, and I called her up. and asked if she wanted to go out with an American Idol. And
So I think he was probably, back then when he invited me on, there probably was some of that thought, like, oh, maybe if she sees me on a big stage,
it was all
she'll
set
like
up.
me.
It was like,
Yeah.
And she
Smart.
She
Yeah.
said no.
Smart.
I
She
did
said
see
no,
She rejected you the first time.
and then she said, "But I'll go out with Scott MacIntyre."
I love it.
It's like a movie.
I love it.
It's like, yeah.
Will you go out with an American Idol? I'll pass, but I'll go out with you.
Exactly.
You're just trying to pull this celebrity card.
Yeah. I don't want to hear the celebrity card stuff.
Although we did actually have our first date at Disneyland
We did.
because we were out in California.
Okay.
And that was pretty fun. I did buy my own pass, but he bought dinner.
Yeah.
And then we got to go on all the rides, but it was so weird. It was right after the show. So he got mobbed by everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, we would go to downtown Disney and he would create roadblocks, like security would come and like push people away. But the benefit was we actually got to go on a lot of the rides by ourselves. So we went to like Star Tours. We got our own room.
Oh man.
And then like they'd be all, I guess, radioing or something. And
yeah.
it's like, okay, you can have this room. I'm like, what is going on?
Splash Mountain. We
Yeah.
get our own
To
lodge.
yourself. You had your own lodge.
Splash
Yeah,
Mountain
our
lodge.
own Pirates of the Caribbean
Yeah,
boat.
but the downside of that on Splash Mountain is there's no one to shield you from the water. You got doused.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
You got
That's right.
soaking wet on that thing. That's what a cool thing. So his celebrity status did play into it.
It did. I
mean,
think
it's
that's
just
probably what sealed the deal.
It was Disneyland.
Disneyland. Being mobbed at Disneyland sealed the deal. That is so funny. You mentioned your book, your autobiography, By Faith, Not by Sight. And you go into your journey and the American Idol journey and the behind the scenes stuff. Is there anything else that you want to say about that book? I hope that everyone picks it up. But is there something else that kind of pops for you? And
I think the title really encapsulates a lot of my life and what God has done in my life over the years. By faith, not by sight.
yeah,
And
because you were born blind.
I was born almost completely blind, and I do use the term blind. I have a little bit of vision in the center of my field. It's kind of like looking through a coffee straw or
Oh wow.
a little pinhole of vision, but I don't see your face in this kind of lighting right now. So it's not really usable in all situations, but I know what a few things look like, and I know, I've seen Christina's face a lot more easily in photos actually
Oh really?
than than in person with people. It takes me a while to get to know someone's face because I just catch little glimpses.
Gotcha.
So I don't know your face at all yet because we just met.
Because we just met, and these lights are bright, and we're in
Yeah.
this big white room.
But it's walking by faith, not by sight, is a concept for how God wants us to trust Him and walk with Him through life. And I think me being blind and having to trust Christina and having to trust others to be my eyes in many situations taught me a lot about trusting God for those bigger things. For a blind person, we all want to go after our big dreams. American Idol, this show, whatever God puts on your heart.
Yeah.
But for me, being blind, if I was going to go after my big dreams, I really had to go after my small dreams too. And for me, crossing a street for the first time was a dream.
Wow.
Purchasing something from a store independently was a dream. It's a small dream, but that's kind of the road for a blind person.
Yeah.
Just doing those things that you might not even think about. And if you think of going up to the edge of a curb and getting ready to cross the street for the first time, having never seen the other side, you have your cane to tell you what's a step or two ahead of you. You have your ears, you can hear certain things. You've heard about the other side. People have talked about it. You believe that it's there, but you've never actually experienced it for yourself. And then at some point, you have to take that first step into the street and start making your way toward the goal.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot like what God asks us to do, is to walk with Him by faith, even though we haven't seen Him this side of heaven.
Yeah.
And so I love using that metaphor, and that's really what the book is all about. I mean, the book talks about growing up blind. It talks about American Idol, it talks about some health things I went through. I've been through 2 kidney transplants in my life. The book talks about the first one, but the theme through all of that is trust,
Mm.
trust in others, and trusting myself. Most importantly, trusting God, even when we can't see where
Yeah.
He's leading us, and He is worthy of that trust. It's hard for us to give Him that sometimes.
Yeah.
It
There's
also, I was gonna
no,
say, it also might have some of our story in it too. So.
It does. It
there's
does.
that famous verse that faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. And there are those times in everybody's life where you feel like there's, wherever someone is in their spiritual journey, that they feel like there's something that God is calling them toward, that there's something that they want to do or achieve or step into, and they wonder, God, is that you? God, are you going to meet me here? God, are you going to see me through this? And there's that nervousness, maybe a lack of faith in God, maybe a lack of faith in themselves,
Mm.
right? And a fear. You have overcome, I imagine, so many fears, and you've trusted God with so many next steps. Can you take us back, maybe one story from your book where you're younger and maybe you're at the edge of that street, that curb, either literally or metaphorically, and you're saying, "Okay, I'm scared to death, but I'm going to take this next step."
Hmm. That's a great question. I think one of the things in the book uh, that I go into a lot is my first kidney transplant,
Hmm.
and that was So I imagine this. I grew up blind, and it was always the same to me. We meet a lot of people as we travel around the world and minister at churches and schools that and other places. We meet a lot of people who have had their sight and then lost it.
Hmm.
We've talked to a lot of people who've walked that road. And for
Yeah.
me, being blind from birth, it's always kind of been the same. So I grew up really finding ways to overcome that and to achieve the things God had put on my heart. And that can be dangerous because you start to rely on yourself. You start to believe you can deal with what life's throwing at you. And there there was a lot that life threw at me.
Yeah.
But when I was 19 years old, I found out that my kidneys were failing for the first time. And that was a shift because I did have those thoughts for the first time of, God, isn't the blindness enough?
Yeah.
Why the kidney failure too?
Yeah.
And is someone gonna want to, someone gonna love me enough to marry me someday? Am I gonna still have friends? What are they gonna think about this?
Mm.
It was just a whole new trial to deal with out of left field.
Yeah.
And I think back through some of the things I talk about in the book, and I tried a lot of things to not have to have a kidney transplant.
Mm.
And I was in a place where I could do this, and tried homeopathic, naturopathic, holistic dentists and Chinese herbal, just the whole list.
Yeah.
Because if you have a kidney transplant, it changes your life. They said for the better, but also you have to take medication. It's you still have problems. They're just different problems,
Yeah.
and it's a big operation. You could lose your life.
Yeah.
And so I fought that, but then one by one, God took away these other options until my only choice was to trust the road that He had clearly laid out for me, which was to let someone else sacrifice on my behalf so that I could have life,
Wow.
and to go through a kidney transplant. And it was hard to let go of that resistance and believe, just like crossing the street, believe that there was something better on the other side. But the real heroes are the kidney donors, that they would sacrificially give.
So
as-
how did that happen? How did your donor, I mean, I read about who the donor was. Can you talk about what that was like from this is the need, this is what has to happen, we have to find a donor. How did you find the donor? How did they step forward? What was that like?
Well, my first kidney transplant, the kidney was given by the wife of my former piano teacher from ASU. And so she
That's
she
amazing.
didn't know me that well, but she knew me through him, and she gave me
Wow.
the kidney. And that kidney lasted for about 8 years. And it's because of that gift that we were able to get married. And that I was able to do American Idol, and then we did a lot of traveling. But that kidney transplant lasted for 8 years, and then I was in need of a second transplant. And the second kidney was given by an anonymous living donor, someone that we had never met, we had never done anything for, and we just got that phone call one day that a living donor, an anonymous living donor, was approved to give their kidney, and we went through the surgery not knowing who this was.
I saw in your documentary film that you're in the hospital and you're realizing my anonymous donor is in here with me and I don't know who they are. Right? Just
Yeah.
just the weight of that moment or that realization. And they heard about you supposedly from the radio.
Yes, they did. We found that out later. But yeah, we were in the lobby, and just kind of a lot of prayer leading up to this time, and then the social worker told us that she was in the lobby, and that was the first time we had heard.
Yeah, we hadn't known if it was a man or a woman
Wow.
at that point. And that was significant for us to know that she was there because Scott couldn't go into his surgery until she had gone into surgery and everything was okay. And then at that point, they would call him in.
Yeah.
Because as a donor, you can back out all the way up until, you're under.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it was just all kind of coming together there, and knowing that she was in the building was kind of strange. I remember Christina was looking out over the railing, and just knowing that somewhere down below in the larger lobby was the donor, but not knowing who it was. It was kind of crazy. And then went through the surgery, and 6 weeks after, we got to meet this person, and she was 27 years old at the time. She has 3 kids, and she's very much a single mother, but she gave more. She gave me the gift of life.
That's unbelievable.
So what's interesting is that she was even a better match than I was. Because, of course, as we're married, I tested to be a donor, and so did a number of other people. But what the hospital does is they take blood samples and look at all these other factors, and they choose the best person. And, I was a match, but she was better. Other friends may have been a match, but she was better. So they picked her to be the one.
That's incredible. Is she doing well? Has she had any adverse effects of being short a kidney?
No.
She's doing awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great. And then so the first one lasted 8 years. What's the anticipation in terms of your health and the longevity of this transplant?
Everything looks great.
Awesome.
Honestly, it's in God's hands. You never know. I still get nervous every time I take a blood test. 'Cause
Sure.
It's like,
Well,
Sure.
the thing about transplants is it's a treatment, not a cure. So
Yeah.
you could have a living donor kidney only last a year for some reason, or we've met people they've lasted 40 years.
Wow.
And I think they estimate 2025 for a
Wow.
living donor. So, a long time,
Yeah.
but again, his first one lasted 8, and
Yeah.
obviously God is sovereign over all of that. So we definitely live in a place of just every day is a gift.
Yeah.
Because we know what it's like to be on the side where we're, we having that fear and just trying to have that peace about what's going to happen next. Because we did find out, it was just about a week before our wedding, that this first transplant wasn't going to last 25 years like we had thought originally. The doctor said maybe 1 year, 2 years.
Wow.
And that was quite a surprise because we thought, well, maybe he'd need a second transplant when we were empty nesters. No, this is before you even have a family.
Wow.
So that was definitely a surprise. So we lived kind of in this tension of, okay, we know this is coming. We don't know when it is because you want to keep the kidney as long as it lasts. But, it ended up lasting another 4 years, which was great, longer than the doctors had said originally. But there was that tension of, okay, we're trusting God in his timing and, his faithfulness. But, we're also living with, okay, what does this mean for our life and the choices and decisions we're making every day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you said that this experience and these experiences help you wake up every day and live for today. How do you cultivate that? Is there a way that you kind of keep up that sense of gratitude and appreciation because like you said with your blindness you can start feeling like, oh, I can handle this, I can do this, right? And so we can get numb to that. It can get to be business as usual. Is there anything that you do, a practice, a prayer, a routine that helps you stay grounded in gratitude and appreciation and joy?
I think it's important to just ask God to keep us in His will
Mm,
each day. This all starts and ends with Him, and in our culture, in today's society, we love to be independent.
we do.
We love to be comfortable.
Yep.
But I believe that God leverages our pain, our suffering, like He promises He will
Yeah.
in the Bible, and He knows that our greatest joy can be found when we're completely dependent on Him,
Yeah.
and that can look a little bit different for different people. He knows what we're holding on to, what we're afraid to let go of,
Yeah.
but he loves to bring us to places of dependence on Him. I really believe that
Yeah.
because we were created to worship Him. We were created to be in fellowship with Him, not to be not to be standing on our own 2 feet, but to live as a result of the blessings He's provided.
Yeah.
And so it's just we've recognized again and again, and both of us in different ways coming into this marriage even that God has us in a place of dependence on Him, and it's that way every day. And it's taught us to trust Him. You know what we found, Caleb, though, is that the year leading up to that second kidney transplant was one of the best years of our life
Mm,
because it just brought us closer together. It brought us closer to God. It was a tough year because I was so sick. We weren't really doing any events. Didn't have the income we had had previously, but we had to give all that over to God. And you know what happened is we found joy.
mm,
Mhm.
We found
Yeah,
happiness.
I would say dependence is one thing that came to my mind. Even like logistically and practically, like back when he was sick, we had family, we had church friends helping us. Like we could not do it by ourselves.
mm.
And when you need help and you recognize like we can't get through this alone, there's a sense of maybe humbleness that comes from that, just recognizing your own weakness. I think.
Yeah.
And so still in our life today, we can't do our life alone. Like we need people, we need help
Yeah.
to come around us.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
other thing I thought of when you asked that question was we saw the impact that going through that second transplant together had on the people around us
Mm.
and the witness it was for Christ to others. Everything from just raising awareness about the need for kidney donation.
Donors.
100,000 people in the U.S. are waiting for a kidney, and that's the
Wow.
organ you can give when you're alive. So we had the platform to share about that while he was in this kidney failure, really sick, saying just like Scott needs a kidney, so many other people need a kidney. We saw how it affected the faith of other people in our circles, how they looked at how we were going through the trial with joy in
Mm.
spite of our circumstance, and how that they took that into their own life. So we saw a lot of positive things coming out of it, which just helped, I think, to fuel our joy in the moment. That taught us this isn't purposeless.
Yeah.
Like God has a purpose
Yeah.
for the pain and suffering. We don't know all of it. We saw some of it. We saw glimpses
Yeah.
while we were going through it together.
Mhm.
And the question we would ask a lot and kind of share this thought with people that we got together with during that time, and even at some events we did, it was instead of asking why me, we should be asking why not me,
Mm.
because we know what we deserve because of our sin. It's eternal separation from God. And because of what Christ did, his gift, we have eternal life with him. So in this life, there's going to be pain and suffering. And maybe it seems like Scott's got like been dealt a really big hand of suffering and pain, but he's also been dealt a really big hand of joy and happiness.
Mm.
And there's been pastors that we've followed who would even say, how can you grow close to God without pain?
Yeah.
You may grow closest to him during that
Yeah.
time. So I think that all fueled our our circumstances going through that together. And then I think it carries over. It's not as much of a everyday crisis now like it used to be,
Yeah.
but I think that character building and all of that's just been instilled in us. It still comes about today.
Yeah.
Well,
I
you
would say.
said in your documentary, you said, which is called "I Am Hope."
Mhm.
You said, "In our suffering, we truly grow closer to God." So I
Mhm.
agree with you, and that's been my experience, and the experience of a lot of people that I know is that. And then C.S. Lewis famously said that God speaks to us in our, I can't remember exactly, circumstances or whatever, but he shouts at us in our pain, right?
Yep.
That there's
Yep.
something about pain and suffering that gets our attention, that gets us out of the default to comfort that you mentioned, that gets us out of our pull toward independence, like you said, and it gets our attention and it wakes
Mhm.
us up inside and it causes us to turn toward God, to acknowledge God, to just need God and to want to walk with God.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's necessary, isn't it? As miserable as it
It
is, and you
is.
wouldn't wish it on anybody,
Sure.
No.
suffering is a part of the deal.
Absolutely. And hope coming into that is a powerful thing, and hope is contagious. It's something you
Mm,
can't keep to yourself. And so this has affected us in very deep ways. I mean, for someone, two times for someone to give me a kidney,
yeah,
and then the second time for it to come from a complete stranger,
amazing.
we just look at that story and we see the gospel so clearly reflected, just like I was powerless to save myself physically until this person and two times now these people gave me the gift of life.
Yeah,
We're all powerless to save ourselves from sin and from just the choices we've made that are contrary to what we were created to do. When we put ourselves above God, we all do that every day, and we're powerless to do anything about that. And yet Jesus steps in and he offers us much more than his kidney. He offers us the greater gift of eternal life if we'll just accept it and,
yeah,
like you said, humble ourselves. Um, and that's what's been so powerful about the blindness in my life, the kidney transplants, and even our marriage is reliance on the other and having to humble yourself and accept help and realize that we need help. That's where we need to start in order to understand the gospel. And one thing that's come out of this that has been so cool is we've been able to share that hope with others, and we
mm,
actually started a nonprofit ministry, basically as musical missionaries, Caleb,
huh,
going to places that we would never be able to go without the support of others. So once again, it's all about relying on others uh, in order to move things forward. And people have sent us through their prayers and through their financial giving to schools and churches as far away as Amman, Jordan. I was over there in the Middle
Amon,
East last fall.
were you really?
And yeah, and it's pretty crazy to see the transplant story and what God did through that and what he can teach us through that, what he's taught me and Christina through that, connecting with not only people here, kids here in the US, but children and students over in the Middle East.
Mm,
And these are people that have fled ISIS.
oh
And
yeah,
I would never compare our story to what they've been through.
yeah, they understand some suffering.
They do, and yet these pastors are saying your story is so close
Mm,
to what our refugees go through
mm,
because you don't have your sight, but you see Jesus,
mm,
and it's connecting, and so that's been a huge blessing that we've been able to do this and go far beyond the music business and just reach people in schools and churches that need hope,
yeah,
that are suffering just
yeah.
like we have.
I have a couple more questions for you, but let's stay on that for a second. So your ministry is called.
It's called Scott MacIntyre Ministries,
Mm,
and it's a department of Artists in Christian Testimony International.
okay.
And so they're a mission sending organization, and so Christina and I kind of view ourselves in that structure as musical missionaries. We're
Yeah.
taking the gospel to people through music. We're bringing hope to people that need it desperately
So
through music.
people can support you financially on your website,
They can, yeah. ScottMacIntyre.com.
and it helps you go locally and to Amman, Jordan, and abroad and anywhere to bring hope and healing and good news to people in tough circumstances,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we'll
Whether
go to
Mhm.
public schools, private schools, churches that are brand new, churches that are small, large, everything, and internationally as well. And then one really exciting part of our ministry is we're actually producing our ministry's first television special right now, and it will probably release in fall 2020. And we're excited about that because that's going to combine some worship elements, some teaching elements, but also share some of the video content from the ministry and the work that we're doing around the country and around the world.
Yeah, and it's a way that we can really reach people, Caleb, that we will never get to in person. Because I mean, we can go to, we spent a week in Jordan and we visited about 8 churches and schools and did those events and ministered to a lot of people. But media, and just like you're doing here, it just reaches people that we can never get to in person. And we feel like God's positioned us in a very unique way to bring hope to people around the world in that way. Number one, because of American Idol and how that kind of goes before us. And number two, just because of this story of suffering that God's written in our lives and the way that people respond to that.
Yeah.
And, maybe you're watching or listening to this right now and you've been encouraged by this story. Well, that's what we want to bring to children, to adults all over the world.
Well said. Awesome. Now, you guys work together as a team. I want to hear a little bit about that, being married, parenting together, being in this ministry together. You do everything together. You guys are always together, and it's a beautiful thing to watch you interact, to watch you, Christina, taking care of Scott in some ways and helping him get around. What is that like, and why does it work? What kind of there's dynamics of maybe partners, spouses that are trying to do a business together or just trying to parent together, or just what have you guys learned about how to support each other so well and doing so 24 hours a day?
That's awesome. It's a great question.
Yeah.
Don't get asked that one much, so this will be fun.
I think it starts from a place of humility and willing to be dependent on one another. And that's something that's foreign to us as human beings. When we want to be independent, we want to solve the problem ourselves, and everyone has a different personality, but it does take intentionality to be willing to listen to the other person, to be willing to be dependent in areas that you may not like to be on the other person. And I think it's a lot of people maybe don't have the opportunity in this day and age to work together like we do and to minister together. But when you do have that opportunity, I pray that people take it, because it just teaches you a lot about what Christ wants to get out of our hearts and our lives when you have to work together, to be together more than just a couple hours at night. How was your day? How was your day? We're literally in the trenches with each other in many ways, and it's deepened our relationship.
I think of Adam and Eve both working in the garden together. I imagine them working side by side sometimes and common goals. So I think about that in our life. It's great to have goals as a family, but I think work is so fulfilling. And when you have a common goal you're working towards and spending, most of your time each day on, I think that can be just a really great way to bring you closer as a couple. Because so much of what's going on. There's not like a disjointedness of your life, my life, that kind of thing. So I think for us personally, it's great. We love it. I know a lot of couples say, "Oh, I can never work together." But Dad, you try? I don't know. You kind of wonder, if you find that common purpose. I think that can be really motivating and just create a real unity in the family.
Yeah.
We love to do things together. When our son was little and he'd fly free on Southwest, we'd bring him to all the events we did, that we could do. Obviously, I don't go to everything now because I'm still a mom and a parent. So we do a lot of juggling. We use the phrase divide and conquer a lot.
Yeah.
So Scott will be doing something, I'll be doing something, so that we can create time for the things we need to do together. Like I mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of different folks that help us in different ways: family, friends, people in the home, people working. So, we try to keep a balance. So that it's not so stressful that there's no personal time. But it's hard if anyone who's listening that has their own business. There's very few boundaries of well, we're done with work at 4:00. Like,
Right. It
no,
just creeps
it's
into.
it's all day, all night, all the time. But
Yeah.
because we love what we're doing,
Yeah.
we don't really mind it. And then we get a lot of flexibility too.
Yeah.
And because we, are really self-directed, we get to decide if we're going to work on a Saturday or not, and work late on Friday, so we can have, Sunday afternoon free or something.
Yeah.
So like practically speaking, we, try to juggle, divide and conquer, and, work together in the areas like we have to like have this discussion, and it really needs to be a team thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and as we've talked about a couple of different times already, it requires not only humility but the willingness to need somebody else, right? And to let this person play the role that they're better at or whatever. I've noticed in marriage, one of my weaknesses is that the thing that attracted us to the person in the beginning, there's the other side of that coin, right? Their strength has a weakness on the other side of it, and the thing that you loved early on, now the other side of that coin can be so annoying or difficult, or and it's just a matter of what are you focused on? Are you focused on the weaker side, or are you focused on the strength and the thing that they're good at? And I see just in the little bit of time that we've known each other and been together that you guys just celebrate each other's strengths, and you guys lean on each other in a variety of ways. So way to go. Keep that up. Thanks for being an example of serving each other well and working together. It has been great in this short little bit of time to get to know you. And thanks for sharing your heart, your vision, your passion, your story, your journey with us on the Spirit Farm podcast. I hope that people will go to your website, scottmacintyre.com.
You got it, yeah.
They will find you on social media. Where's the best social media?
We're on Facebook, Scott Mac Official on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Scott D. MacIntyre on Instagram, Twitter as well. And it's all linked to scottmacintyre.com. So that's a great place to start. And we would love to engage with you guys in the ministry, whether you serve at a church, maybe we can come serve you, or a school, or whether you'd like to help send us. And we're just really excited about what God's doing.
Thanks, you guys. Great to have you.
Thanks, Caleb.
God bless you.